Oh, welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy, that up because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. My friends, welcome in. It is a great, great day. Now, some of you have noticed on the live stream that this show got pushed back. Why, Russ? Why? My God, Russ, why did you do that? Why would you do that to the people who care about coming to your show each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook and X? Why would you do that? Because I was trying to be a good guy. Because as we know, friends, Phightin Words is now part of the Joy Media Network. And Ant and Bob said, hey, we have some Phillies stuff to break down. Can we go at 8:15? And I said, well, we'll work on it. They're like 8:15 to 8:45. I said, all right, I'll push my show back 15 minutes and see if it's done, okay? And I got to tell you guys, they're not done. They're still overdoing their show. And I said, you know what? If that's going to happen, if at some point I got to come on, I got to do my show. So a big thank you to everybody who checked out Phightin Words this morning. Big thank you to everybody who checks this show out. But we have a lot to get into because your team, your town, your Philadelphia Phillies went down to D.C. And look at this wonderful coiffed tuft of hair right here. This was bad. The Phillies go down to D.C. They win 2 out of 3. I went down to D.C. with the family. We saw the cherry blossoms. Who doesn't love a good cherry blossom? And then we watched the Phillies go slugfest on the Nationals in the second game of that series. Oh, but it wouldn't be a Phillies opening weekend if it weren't for Aaron Nola getting lit up to the tune of multiple home runs. And it happened again in Game 3. So we'll get there. But before we do, I just have to note, we have Phillies talk today. We have Matvei Michkov making a late run at the Calder. Although, in fairness, if you pay attention to hockey, Michkov should have been a top 3 guy in the Calder race most of the season. Now the Torts is gone. He's ratcheted the point production up under Brad Shaw. Oh, and by the way, the Tush push. The Tush push may get banned. We have not exactly breaking news, but we have very recent quotes as recent as this morning. Peter Schrager also leaves Good Morning Football. We'll get there a little bit later on in the show. And all of this happens, and I put something in the description, and it's in the thumbnail of the episode. But guys, like the torpedo bats happening. It's not just the Yankees, but the Yankees have been going home run derby all weekend. So now there are a lot of questions, comments, and concerns around whether or not the torpedo bats are going to get outlawed in baseball. They technically fall within the rules, but might not happen. So, yeah. I'm going to go out to the comments, though, before we get into each and everything that we have to get into today, because, again, there are very many things, and the time is not limited, but it's also not unlimited this morning. So we're going to go out to the comments and see how people are doing. Josh Gaynor with a very good call out here. Don't touch the cherry blossoms down in D.C. You'll get arrested, according to the local broadcast team. That's real. Apparently, it is real. I will tell you, the amount of people that were down there to see the cherry blossoms, it was insane. I don't think I've ever been in Washington, D.C. When it's that crowded, except for my inauguration. No, I don't think I've ever seen that many people in D.C. in my life ever. I have gone down to D.C. on lovely spring days, hot summer days. I have never seen that kind of just sea of humanity. I also learned, this is just a little factoid, if you ever think about going down to Nationals Park, you can't park anywhere near Nationals Park, like hours and hours beforehand. Like I was going to say, like, let's park at one of the Nationals lots or at one of the parking garages, and we'll just take the metro over to where the museums are. No, it's all like 2-hour street parking, 2-hour max. You can't do that. So we're like, all right, what do we do? And then we ended up having to park by the museums, which is fine. But then you pay for parking at the museums, and then you have to turn right back around and go pay for parking by Nationals Park. I have a lot to get into about the National stuff, though. It's a nice setup. I said this a couple of years ago, but like I like Nationals Park. I like the area around it, the restaurants, a lot of good selection. It's a nice place to go see a game. I think the sight lines are nice there. It's a good park. It's a good park. And it's nice that it kind of serves as a second Citizens Bank Park because make no mistake about it, Saturday's game, the second game of that series, I can't speak to the other two, it was a Phillies home game. My section, we were down on the first base line, right where like the netting ends. We're like 10 rows off the field. And our entire section was largely Phillies fans. I mean, there were a couple of Nationals fans here, another couple of Nationals fans back here. The best part of the game that was not related to the field was there was a beautiful, and Connor knew exactly where I'm going. Connor Allen over on YouTube knew exactly what I was going to go to. There was a guy down in like the third or fourth row in our section. This guy was such an asshole that Phillies fans and Nationals fans together, they came together to get this Nationals fan booted out of the game. And I was like, all right, are they booting an unruly Phillies fan? Because like, what are the odds that you see Phillies fans and Nationals fans coming together? It was a Nationals fan. So I see this guy who's like down in the first or second row. He turns around and he's pointing, and they're calling for security from the side and security from up top. And then these other Phillies fans, they stand up and they start pointing to this guy. And so I'm like, what the hell happened? I'm like, is there a medical emergency, right? Because there's a lot of people pointing at this one guy. Dude kind of gets up, kind of staggers. He's like double fisting. I don't know what he had. It might have been Michelob Ultras, but he's double fisting beers. And he gets booted. And what we find out is this Nationals fan was dumping beers on other Nationals fans. I mean, I get it. At that point in the game, it was very late in the game. Things had gone very sideways for the Nationals. They were about to lose their second straight home game. But this Nationals fan was dumping beers on the heads of his fellow Nationals fans. And he was such an asshole that Phillies fans were like, yo, we got you. We got your back. Phillies fans helping this Nationals fan to get this other Nationals fan booted from the game. It was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. But yeah, it was a Phillies home game. Very much a Phillies home game. It was one of those things where, like, when you go on the road, and you probably experienced this at some point. Maybe you've gone out to Pittsburgh, you've gone down to D.C. But, like, when you get up to go get food, right, because we're wrangling 4 kids. And so I go to take the littlest ones up to go take the kids to go get some ice cream or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the littlest ones. We're going to go find some ice cream. We'll go find another snack. And while I'm away from the seats, I think the Phillies hit a home run. But like the cacophony of sound that came from that stadium, you'd think, oh, the Nationals just got on the board. And I'm looking at the scoreboard. I'm like, wait, the Phillies are at bat. That's how much of a home game it was. It was a very, very big home crowd for the Phillies. Now, again, game number 3, not ideal, but we will get there. But before we do, we're going to go out to the comments because that is ultimately where we like to start the show here on the Russ Joy Show. Let's go over. Chris Reed says, so it appears that the SS York sunk the battleship Torts. This has so far been a drastically underreported story in the media. We fans deserve at least a 3-hour tour on it, Skipper. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. Yeah. I don't know what happened with Cam York and John Tortorella. There was a report that came out over the weekend that there was a confrontation between the two and that it was fair to say that they both took it too far. Then it was reported off of that report that it was not a physical confrontation. It was not a physical... listen, say what you will about the heat of battle. That game... that was being reported on, that was being referred to is the one where Cam York, it was up in Toronto, Cam York, like 9.5 minutes or whatever into the first period, gets sat and he doesn't play the rest of the game. And I was like, listen, even if you're angry, and Cam York is like a Southern California guy, he's a very laid-back looking dude. He looks it on the ice. That's part of the problem. There's no way that he's going to hit Grandpa Torts. There's just no way. Now, could Torts have gotten in his face, try to challenge him to challenge back? Because remember, Torts likes the whole thing where you go to his office and you kind of start yelling at him, and that's how he decides he likes you or respects you for a little bit of time. I just didn't see a scenario where you were going to get that out of Cam York. I don't know what went over the line, but remember, that led to Brad Shaw. Whatever the incident was between York and Torts was a carryover thing where when the team came back to Philadelphia and played Montreal, York didn't play the entire game, but they had to suit up 6 defensemen. And so he was essentially a healthy scratch sitting on the bench without a stick, and he looked very pissed. So, I don't know. I don't know how much there is to report on it, though, in fairness to what Chris is saying here. I don't think it's like a vast conspiracy to not like try to find out the details. Just think they're going to be kind of hard to defined. JH says, I still never had York pegged as the one that would do it. I agree. JH continues, little Matty Meach coming from behind to win the Calder would be the biggest middle finger to Torts, the league, and Montreal. Yeah, guys, I have to tell you, Michkov has been on an absolute tear. I want to get there in a little bit. It is funny to see the anti-Michkov bias, though, across the league.
Oh, Celebrini. We like Celebrini. He's having a great season.
They essentially, the Canadian media, essentially crowned Celebrini as the Calder winner at the beginning of the season. And Michkov has put together a season that has been staggering. He's put together one of the best overall stat lines, right? And if you zoom out at it from a macro level, games played versus minutes played, Michkov, by virtue of getting scratched and benched so many times, has only played, I think, as of last night, it was like he'd played 9 more minutes total than Celebrini. Because some people like to point out, oh, well, Celebrini missed time with injury, which is true and is fair. But if you look at the minutes played, it was like a difference of 9 minutes. Again, because Torts like to have Michkov in and out of the lineup, like to scratch him, like to not play him a lot. And now that Brad Shaw's essentially said, oh, Matvei Michkov is he's our best player. He's certainly our highest skilled player right now and probably our best performing forward on this team. Yeah, I'm going to play the guy. I'm going to play him more than like 10 or 12 minutes a game. Over his last 5 games, Michkov is up to 9 points in his last 5 games, including 4 goals. He's gone back-to-back games with 2 goals apiece against both Montreal and Buffalo at home. And he also has 5 assists to go with it. I mean, like, look, I'm not a hockey savant here, all right? But one could assume that if you play your best player more minutes in a game, it stands to reason that he may or may not perform and put up points in games. So if we just look at the last 5 games, because again, I like to focus on those last 5, and yes, Torts was here for a few of them. The minutes per game, the time on ice has increased. Against Dallas on the 22nd, just over 15 minutes. That jumped to about 16 and a half minutes and 16 minutes and 46 seconds over the next 2. That included the Toronto game. That ultimately, the comments that may have led to the guillotine coming down on Torts. Brad Shaw takes over against Montreal, right? Michkov plays 20 minutes and 29 seconds. Scores 2 goals. Follows that one up with 19 minutes and 59 seconds. We're going to round that sucker up to 20. So 2 games that Brad Shaw has coached this team, Michkov has played 20 minutes per game, roughly. And if you take the average, it's technically above 20 minutes. Who'd have seen that coming? You play the guy more, he's going to rack up points. That is also the thing about the Celebrini argument, right? Because what some people like to go back to is, he's played fewer games, and so it's more impressive. And then you get some people who say, well, go by points per 60, right? Take the entire point total based on the amount of minutes played, divide it up, and you'll see that Michkov is still a better overall player on a points per 60-minute basis than Celebrini is. I mean, listen, if Michkov were playing as many minutes in his games as Celebrini has, it stands to reason Michkov would have more points. My whole thing is this, right? I said this over the weekend. I pissed off some of the Tortsaholics who were fucking weird. They think I'm weird because I just didn't enjoy the John Tortorella experience. They continue to glaze this guy now that he's gone. Bless their hearts, because once, John Tortorella, I don't know where he's going to land or what he's going to do, but I assume that those people are going to light their Flyers jerseys on fire, and they're going to go become Torts sycophants wherever he goes. That's my guess. So here's the thing. I said over the weekend that going into the season, I think the over-under on Michkov points was 62. That seems to stand out in my head. 62 points, I think, was the over-under going into the season. And I thought in my heart of hearts that like 80 points could be in reach. I knew that was insane for a rookie, but I was like, 80 points could very well be in play because he was going to play on the power play a lot. And ultimately, he was one of the most skilled players, even though it was his first year in the league, And even though he was entering his rookie season as a 19-year-old, it's like 80 points as like a high mark, right? I didn't expect him to like hit 80 comfortably and then like go above. It was like 80 was kind of like the pie in the sky. I tweeted over the weekend that had it not been for some Torts fuckery, he probably would have been a lot closer to 80 points by the end of the season. And then you get some of these like weird Torts sycophants and they're like,
Oh, you idiot. You realize that means you're saying that Torts cost him 10 or 15 points.
it's like, well, I will just very calmly point out the fact that he's been a nearly 2-point per game player over his last 5. And since John Tortorella's dismissal, he's gone well over that. He has 5 points in his last 2 games. Stands to reason here that even if he were to, wrap up the season at a point per game, right, and they have 9 games left, add another 9 points, you're at 65. You take a couple of scratches away, you take away a couple of those long benchings away, he's probably closer to 72, maybe 73. Now, if he goes on a nice little tear here, that 80-point mark that I'm talking about, so if you want to say it's a 5 or 6 point variance with Torts, I think it's a little bit higher, but if you want to say 5 or 6, all right, fine. He would have gotten close to 80. He won't get close to 80 now. He'll pretty easily cross 60. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few games he flirts with 70. He'll probably end up with, I don't know, does he end up with like 65 points, 66 points at the end of his rookie season? It's entirely plausible. But this is the whole thing again. Like, I don't know why some of these weird people get really upset. They defend Torts to the bitter end. And again, I hope that wherever he lands next, they can maybe get a little Torts jersey. They can build what I actually imagine some of these people are like. Because there are people who don't follow me on Twitter, but every time they see a Torts tweet, it's almost like they're a bot. They hop in, they say something negative. And what I imagine these people do is I have to imagine that they have like something in their house for Torts. They have like something dedicated to him. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. If you think about it, I'm pretty sure that if we had to, I don't know, go out of our way to compare it to something and maybe a 90s reference that some of the wonderful people in the comments would understand, I'm actually going to throw it out to it. I assume that some of these people that are just very, very into John Tortorella, they probably have something like this in their closet. Like they pull back the clothes, they pull back the curtain, and it's like Helga Pataki had the Hey Arnold. Remember? Helga Pataki, we all know. She had the Arnold shrine, and she'd like take the piece of gum that he like put under a seat, she'd grab it, she'd go put it on the Hey Arnold shrine. I imagine that there are some really strange Flyers fans that are very upset that Torts is gone. And then when they get home and they part the clothes in their little closet, they've got like some pictures of him or something. And maybe they found like a beard hair somewhere. Or maybe they got a piece of gum or a couple of sunflower seeds he spat out at like the carnival or something. They add it to their little shrine. I don't know. I'm just saying like there's a possibility. Non-zero chance. Anyway, Michkov is going to make an actual run here at the Calder. Whether or not he'll get it, I do not know. But it's kind of a mess. Let's see. Greg Bondarenko says, there's rumors going around here in Massachusetts that Torts will be recruited to the Bruins. Would certainly be interesting. Listen, I don't think the Bruins are as bad. The Bruins are actively trying to tank right now, in a way. The Bruins, I think, are within reason, like could kind of turn things around reasonably. And just based on what Boston is, like I don't see Boston going in a multi-year tank. So if that's the case, we do know. Like, look, even if you're a Torts detractor, you have to admit the guy is able to get a ton out of mediocre at best players. He did it here. He lowered their floor more than I wanted him to. Certainly raised their ceiling more than I wanted him to in the midst of a rebuild. But it's hard to argue the fact that the guy, like, he still can win you games. So if that's what you're looking for in Boston, like, go with God. I don't know. Bless your heart. Enjoy it. Enjoy the experience. And in fairness, Torts coaching Boston feels like a spiritual thing that like should probably happen. So I don't know. Raymond Supper says, I've heard Torts still has a place on St. Pete Beach. Head there. If he wants to see playoff hockey, it's a 45-minute drive, and they'd welcome him there. I wonder, like, does he end up? There's probably no chance that he ends up back with the Lightning organization, but that would be interesting. I'll be interested to see, like, does Torts go back to TV? Does he take a front office role somewhere with a team that he's been a big part of before, like a Tampa Bay? I don't think Columbus would probably welcome him back. I can't imagine that the Rangers would. I know that AJ in the comments the other day said that, the Rangers fans within 20 minutes of the Flyers firing Torts wanted to have him back. I don't know which team would want to have him there actively, but there probably is a team out there that would offer him a gig, a pretty high-paying gig to probably be some kind of an advisor. And if he lands there, good on him. All right, so I think that was like most of the Flyer stuff. Now I'm gonna go back to the comments over here. We'll see what else we can find. Let's see, and we're gonna kind of go back and forth between Flyers and Phillies here, I'm sure. But I have to get to the Tush Push stuff from this morning because it's insane. Let's see. JH says, just got the Phillies opening day email. So hyped. Just hope it doesn't rain. It's supposed to, but like it apparently the rain is a little bit later arriving now. If you're going to go down to the Phillies game, get there early. If you're going to go to the Flyers game, get there early. Like, I'm going to probably show up at the sports complex at like 2 o'clock today just because I don't want to get stuck in traffic. And I certainly don't want to be stuck in delayed traffic. It's going to be a disaster down there, but it's okay. Chris Freed says, last 2 home openers were called off because of weather. I suspect this one will as well. Hard to say, but there's certainly a possibility. Let's see. Josh Gaynor says, I know the Flyers are tanking, but it was nice to see them win in person, especially since that was the first game I've been to in about a decade. Well, good on you, Josh. Here's the thing. A lot of people got upset because the Flyers won back-to-back games. And is it good for the tank? No, it's not. Are they going to lose every game? No, they're not. There's a weird part of me that feels a certain way. I tweeted this out from the Nationals game when I saw what was happening with the Sabres game. But on a human level, I feel good for the players. And on a human level, I feel really good for Brad Shaw, who's been a very good soldier here as a coach and is a guy that players have spoken very highly of. And so, like, on a human level, I feel good for those guys that they're able to go out and it seems as though a weight has been lifted off of them, and it certainly seems like they're playing a much more open, freer game. And again, I like Brad Shaw. He's been very good to us on the show. He's been, like I said, Cam York especially was one who really called out what a good communicator Shaw has been and that he explains the why of things. And there's this thing, I talked to Bill Meltzer about this, I think ahead of the Canadians game on the Press Row show, but like, one of the coaches that impressed me the most in the time that I've kind of been around or covered the Flyers was Scott Gordon, who was a coach in Lehigh Valley and then was the interim coach after the Flyers fired Hackstall. I think it was after Hackstall. Yes. And Gordon was really interesting because he was so far ahead of his time, right? So this is like, 2018 or 2019 is when Hackstall got fired. I don't remember. 18, I think. And Gordon talked about the fact that the modern player, the current player, like 2018, they were fine with your decisions. They just wanted to know why. And it wasn't a disrespectful why. It was they want to understand why a decision was made, and probably in part because they want to make sure it doesn't happen again. But he was like really at the forefront of this idea that the modern player just wants to know why. They'll accept your reasoning. They'll accept the fact that you bench them, you scratch them, whatever. But they just want some like context around it. They want to know what led to it. And so I was really impressed by that. And like talking to some of the guys in that locker room that season after Gordon took over, there was very much a feeling that he was more willing to have those conversations than like Hackstall was, which is good. And then remember, after the dismissal of Hackstall, who the players didn't like, they hired Elaine Vigneault, who the players, for the most part, for a good long while, really liked, and then that didn't work, and so they fired him, and they brought in a coach in Tortorella that a lot of players didn't like, and then stands to reason that they might go back the other way this offseason and go hire a guy that the players will like. You get it. Things, they move in cycles. Hockey is cyclical. Anyway, talking to Brad Shaw a few times and having him on Snow the Goalie a few times, he echoed a lot of what Gordon said now 7 years ago. That idea that players need to have an idea of why a decision was made because they're trying to learn and trying to get better. And it seems like with Shaw, These guys feel like they have that open line of communication. Now, again, it's early, and they played a Montreal team that's very much headed to the playoffs and a Buffalo team that very clearly is heading towards the lottery. And that Buffalo team is also competing with this Flyers team to try to get that high pick, right? Like, there's no hiding it. These teams, the players are going to go out and play as hard as they can. The coaches are going to coach as hard as they can. But ultimately, these two teams, what's best for their organizations is for them to lose games and get a higher pick. We're going to see what it's going to look like here over this last stretch of 9 games. I assume the Flyers are going to lose more games than they win. Now, if the Flyers somehow go on like an unbelievable stretch here and they win like 6 straight, 7 straight, I will be ripping my hair out. My 5 head will become a 6 head or maybe a 7 head. I assume I'll pull the hair from here. I don't want to have the bald spot in the back. I can deal with the higher forehead. I've always had a high forehead. I could probably get to a 7 or 8 head before I really start feeling horrible about it, but I don't want to have the spot in the back. That just never really looks good. Anyway, I'm a little bit nervous because the Flyers are definitely playing a looser game. And the good news in it is that you're starting to see some of the younger players that you were hoping were going to kind of take that next step look better. Forrester has looked better. I would argue Tippett has looked better. Those two alone looking better since Torts' dismissal, to me, is a positive. It is a sign that maybe there was more to these guys. Maybe they were so stuck in their own heads because of the way that they were interacting with the coach. And now they feel they can go out and kind of get the job done. To me, that's a positive. If you have the coach get fired, Shaw takes over, is a better communicator, and the guys still look like dog shit, that's a big concern. So, like, overall, Flyers sense, despite the fact that I would like to see them lose games because losing games is ultimately going to put them in better position to get a decent draft pick, on a human level, I get it. I feel okay for them that they've gotten a couple of wins here. Now they can go back to losing. Like, I don't know, losing tonight would be pretty great. Before we continue back with the comments, I do want to get over to our thrice a week occurrence here where we go over to Tankathon. We take a goosey gander at the we could look at the Sixers later. I'd rather not. They're horrific. But we'll look at the Flyers' chances of getting one of those top picks. We're going to sim this one time. Flyers wake up on Monday, March 31st, the year of our Lord 2025, with the 5th best odds of winning that number 1 overall pick. But I do want you guys to take a look right here. All right, right here in the games played. This is what really matters. The Flyers, 69 points in 75 games. Seattle has a game in hand. Nashville has 2 games in hand. You're not going to be able to get anywhere back this far. I don't think that at this point they're going to be able to get back to number 3 with Nashville. It depends. If you lose to Nashville, 4-point swing, they jump up to a nice little 64. You stay at 69. Maybe there's a chance. I think it's more likely than not your best spot that you're going to be able to finish is number 4. If Seattle just goes out and wins a game, there you go. They jump ahead of you. Then you go back to number 4. If they lose in overtime, surprise, surprise, you're tied on points with the same amount of games played. The real positive here is Buffalo. Like Buffalo, despite the fact that they have 1 fewer point, they have 2 games in hand. That's bad, very bad for them. Boston remains in free fall, have lost 8 straight games, very clearly not trying to win.
Not trying. You can't say they're not trying. They're hockey players. They try.
Okay, well, they suck. And they've lost 8 straight games. But they are very much trying to go backwards, or they're very much trending going backwards. But we'll take a gander here at where the Flyers could end. We're going to sim it up, and the Flyers would fall to number 6. Not ideal. We don't love that. Oh, and the Rangers. Oh, that's great. Yeah, the Rangers would jump 10 spots to number 2. There's somebody in our chat who'd be very happy to see that happen. I would not be that person. That is not good. We don't like that. We're just going to burn that one from the records, and we are going to act like that draw never happened. I think that's the smart way to go about it. Okay, let me go over to the comments again. We'll just kind of keep coming back in here. Joe Papel says, Russ is interviewing head coaching candidates. No. I wonder if the Flyers are going to hire a hiring firm like last time when they got Torts. Remember they had Billy King. Remember former Sixers GM Billy King? It was like his firm or whatever, his interviewing whatever company was part of it. Yeah, let's not do that again. Let's see. AJ says, morning all, Michkov is skating like the weight of an oppressive coach has been lifted off him. I agree. Sean C. says, Russ, my anger from the Flyers whooping the Sabres Saturday was eased by the Sabres going to D.C. and taking it to the number one regular season team in the East, and then the Penguins won in overtime. That's the beauty of like what's happening right now. If you're looking at Tankathon Daily, is you're trying to keep an eye on Nashville, trying to keep an eye on Buffalo, I guess on Pittsburgh to some extent. Really, I'm looking more at free-falling Boston as an actual problem. But, like, Buffalo went down and, like, just mollywopped the Capitals. And then you see Pittsburgh goes to overtime in a scoreless game, and then Crosby wins it in OT. You go, all right, well, Pittsburgh is now going the wrong way as well. So I guess that's a good thing. Sean C. is echoing, I'm sure, what intern Andrew is going to talk about on the Press Row Show tonight. Penn State to the Frozen Four. Hockey was good again for one Sunday in March. So there you go. Let's see. We'll keep going. JH says, woo, let's go Penguins. Puke, 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 puke. Felt ill writing that. Yes. Let's see. Keep going. All right. I think I want to get to what happened with the tush push because Connor Allen asked a question, or he said, Sean McDermott is a generational loser. And I think it's probably fair, and I think it's probably time that we do get to what happened with the tush push. I'll try to get to as many of these other comments as I possibly can. But this is bad, guys. Like, I want to kind of run this back a little bit. Allow me to take you to where things started, where things got updated, and then where things went awry. So I want to start first with Nick Sirianni. This was a quote yesterday. Mike Garafolo spoke with Sirianni at the owners' meetings, and it is wild stuff. It is because remember the competition committee is going to meet. The Packers put out the thing about wanting to have the tush push banned. Everybody clowned the Packers because it just seemed like they were being kind of like whiny little bitches. Anyway, Mike Garafolo spoke to Sirianni yesterday and said Sirianni said the following. We'll see how it goes about the tush push vote. All I'll say about it is that Gannon, Steichen, and Kellen Moore better vote for it. Like not ban the tush push. They are in the position they are right now, head coaching, because of that play. So all three, I better have those three votes right there and the Eagles vote. I know at least we have four. Now, obviously, probably joking, right? Probably tongue-in-cheek. But in fairness, Sirianni saying that Gannon, Steichen, and Kellen Moore all have jobs as head coaches because of that play. Let's just imagine for a second that you don't want to be gracious with it and you don't want to say like tongue-in-cheek. Okay. Gannon and Steichen both got hired in the midst of the Eagles going to Super Bowl, 57, right? We kind of like erase it from our memories. 2 years ago, 57. So the Eagles go to the Super Bowl against Kansas City a few years ago. And in the midst of that run, Gannon gets hired by Arizona. Steichen gets hired by Indy. All of this happens in large part due to the fact that the Eagles were this oddly resurgent team and that they made their way to a Super Bowl and that defense was buzzing. Remember, that Gannon defense, despite the fact that it would drive you nuts, they got to the quarterback. And on the other side, that offense was very, very good. And a big part of that was, in fact, the tush push. So, okay, you maybe want to go tongue-in-cheek. Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore gets plucked, not from obscurity, right, coming from the Chargers, but he gets here. The Eagles win a Super Bowl, and in the midst of them winning that Super Bowl, he's interviewing for jobs, and he ends up interviewing for the Saints job and gets it. So, okay, this is probably partially a joke, but there is at least a kernel of truth in that, like, three assistant coaches got hired around a Super Bowl, and it just so happens that a lot of the success of that team, of that offense, was predicated on the ability to execute the tush push. So then we get to follow-up, all right, because Sirianni said those three guys. Well, Shane Steichen spoke to the media, and so Dave Zangaro put out Steichen's, comments here, said that Sirianni has talked to him about the tush push support. Steichen says he's in favor of the play staying. So at the very least, Sirianni said Gannon, Steichen, and Kellen Moore better vote for it. It's why they have head coaching jobs. You got at least Steichen. Now, there were some people going, you know what, I wonder if you'll get some loyalty from former assistant coaches who were here. Maybe a guy like, I don't know, Sean McDermott. You know, if you remember, not that long ago, maybe it was about a month ago, we'll say, we talked about it on this show about the fact that Sean McDermott was one of the people who was an outspoken critic of the Tush push. And remember that a lot of his pushback on the Tush pushback, that's actually pretty good. His pushback was about player safety. We have to make sure that we're doing things that are safe for the players. The players we can't run the risk of players getting injured. Oh, well, don't worry. Sean McDermott, he stayed consistent today. This was from this morning, a little bit before we went live with the show. Sean McDermott says being proactive on banning the Tush push to prevent injuries, even if the data is not there now, is the best way to proceed. Quote, "We're going to always act in a way that's best for the health and safety of the players." End quote. Sean, how you doing there, fella? How's it going? First of all, bullshit. But I would like to point out a couple of things here, Shawnee. Can I call you Shawnee? I'm going to call you Shawnee. Here's the problem, Shawnee. Over the last few years, your Buffalo Bills team has run the Tush push the second most times in the National Football League. Of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, who executed very, very well, they've run the Tush push the most. But the team that's run it the second most times is your team.
Shawnee McDermott. Oh, it's really upsetting. You know, we really care about the player safety. We're really worried about the players, guys. We're worried about the players getting hurt. Even if the data isn't there to support the fact that players are getting hurt. It's all about player safety.
So, Shawnee, just to double check here, does that mean that you don't care about your player safety, bud? Because if it's all about player safety, Shawnee, why are you running it the second most time in the league, Shawnee? You don't care about Josh Allen's health? You don't care about your offensive line's health? Is that what it is? Are you being actively negligent, Shawnee? Is that what you're doing? Because if you care about the player safety, but then you run the play a lot, we call that cognitive dissonance or willful negligence. Because if you really do believe in your heart of hearts that you have to get rid of the play because it's so dangerous and you care about player safety, then you probably shouldn't be running the play yourself. Perhaps you're actually just upset because Josh Allen, who's a big boy, and your offensive line, which is also comprised of big boys, they can't execute that play the same way that the Eagles do. You know, maybe, Shawnee, if your Buffalo Bills team were able to run that play and execute it in the AFC Championship game like you tried to do, while also saying that the Tush push is a player safety issue, maybe if Josh Allen had been able to, execute that play at a higher level and you had gone on to play in the Super Bowl, maybe you would have felt differently. Maybe if Josh Allen and your little offensive line up in Buffalo had been able to execute that play a little bit better in the AFC Championship game, got to the Super Bowl, executed it, and won, do we really think that Sean McDermott will be talking about player safety? No, because it's not about player safety. Remember, when Shawnee McDermott tried this the first time,
it's about the player safety, guys. It's all about, the injuries. There could be injuries.
That got refuted within a day. That there had been, I believe, 0 injuries, 0 meaningful injuries to players coming out of the Tush push. So now it's, well, even if the data's not there, it's still a problem. It's still a player safety issue. Hey, just out of curiosity, Shawnee, if the National Football League moves to add an extra regular season game, are you going to speak out against that? Because I'm thinking probably no. But it stands to reason that adding another regular season game to the schedule might also be a player safety issue, huh? That maybe having players take the field an extra time in the regular season, that might actually cause more injuries, Shawnee. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just thinking, you put a bunch of big dudes on the field and you have them play another fully meaningful game, I don't know what's going to hurt them more. That or the tush push, which has not led to any meaningful injuries. Just throwing that out there. Ball's in your court. Here at the Russ Joy Show, happy to have you on. You can make your case for player safety. I'd love to hear it. Maybe I'm missing something. Perhaps Shawnee McDermott has looked into the future. Maybe Shawnee McDermott has sat down and he's acted like Doctor Strange in the Avengers. And he's gone through the millions of potential realities that could play out. And he's seen one where Josh Allen tears his ACL. Or he sees one where the two lines smash together and it just creates a black hole and it sucks the entire earth in and humanity as we know it ceases to exist. Maybe Shawnee McDermott is actually saving humanity here by taking this very brave stance.
It's all about player safety, even though there's no data to support that player safety is actually at risk here.
Cool. I'm glad that we had that. Yeah. I'll go out here to Ford, who says, oh, okay, Sean. Yeah, when you run Josh Allen up the middle every other play. And then also says NFL coaches acting like politicians, just talking out of their asses and then lying about the reason. Yeah, there's no way, if you're trying to be fair here, and I'm always willing to be fair, if there were data to prove that the tush push led to 5 blown ACLs, or it led to 2 guys rupturing their Achilles, or it led to actual injuries, then I would be open to the idea of, okay, maybe you have to have that conversation about the play being dangerous, right? But there's nothing to support it. And so if that's the case, what are we doing here? And that's what I'm going to keep coming back to when it comes to the tush push. What exactly are we doing here? The Packers want it banned because the Packers are upset they can't run it. And the Packers are also upset that they got bounced in the playoffs, due in part to that play. But what are we doing? It seems weird. It kind of seems dumb. Now, I don't know about the other rule that's been proposed, but Garofalo also reported around this McDermott availability that McDermott is a member of the NFL's competition committee. And the Lions had a proposal to remove the automatic first down on illegal contact or defensive holding. And, McDermott says, well, there's been a discussion on possible variations. Dude, can you have an opinion? Can you just have a thought? Can you have a belief? Can you articulate it? What are we doing? Sean McDermott, you should be embarrassed. Brian Knowlton says ego injuries don't count. I agree. That's really what it is. To me, the Packers bringing this issue to the forefront is an ego play. Their feelings are hurt. And I do think that with Buffalo, they're just upset they can't execute it at the same level. But again, you can't, what are we doing? Okay, let's just, do I even have a good analogy to make? Right? It's we think bacon is unhealthy, but the Buffalo Bills diner is making more BLTs than everyone except for Bacon Hut Jr. down the road. Bacon Hut Jr., they make the most BLTs. But the Buffalo Bills diner is also making a lot of BLTs. A lot of BLTs. Now, their bacon is sometimes flaccid. It's a soft, limp bacon. It's actually kind of sad in a way. Now, some people like soft, limp bacon, but not a lot of people do. Now, sometimes the Buffalo Bills diner, it does make a nice, crispy piece of bacon that you can hold it with your index finger and your thumb, and it stays nice and straight, right? Good, crispy bacon on a BLT. But sometimes it's a limp and flaccid bacon. Okay. But the Buffalo Bills diner continues to make money selling those BLTs. But then at the same time, when interviewed by the local news, the manager says,
well, we know that bacon may be harmful, and ultimately we're worried about the cholesterol of potential patrons. We're very concerned about bacon's potential negative health impact on patrons. And then turns around and starts frying more bacon. That's Sean McDermott. Is there any data to prove that the bacon is actually harmful to the health of the patrons? This is actually where the analogy runs out of steam, because one could probably assume that bacon every day, a lot of bacon, probably not great for your health, but let's just say no.
And he turns around and he just starts frying more bacon. That is Sean McDermott. I don't know what we're doing here. It's just bad. It's bad, bad, very bad. And it honestly comes off as disingenuous. Joe Papel says, does Sean have data that two-hand touch is safer than tackle football? You know what? Tackling's actually pretty dangerous, too. I wonder if Shawnee McDermott wants to ban tackling in the league. That could be, too. JH says, poverty franchises, that's just whiny bitches because they haven't won a Super Bowl. In the words of Rachel Dratch on the best SNL skit before the last Eagles win, call us when you win one, numbnuts. I love that. Let's see. Greg Bonrenko says, it feels like whenever there's a play nobody can stop, people get butthurt and start crying to ban the play. Here's the thing. On one hand, and this is a good one, because Raymond Supper, remember on this show a while ago, I pulled up the quotes from some other coaches addressing it. And Raymond Supper said, Todd Bowles wants to be the guy that figures out how to stop it instead of banning it. Another vote. Remember, he did say, like, Bowles was very clear that, you have to figure out a way to stop it. Like, you can't just ban things because you're not able to stop it. Like, stop it, and then you'll figure it out. My whole thing is this. Figure out another play. The Eagles somehow came up with the tush push. They somehow figured out a way to make it work within the rules. Where it's some people would argue it's not within the rules, but, like, for the most part, if it weren't multiple seasons of running it, it would have been banned by now. They figured out a play that works and works at a very high rate for them. There is nothing stopping another team in this league from coming up with a similar play or another play altogether that could work at a very high clip and then have to, make defensive coordinators figure out a way to stop it. But at this point, it's not happening. So it's just not good. It's honestly kind of dumb. Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to get in the comments about the Eagles thing? I don't think so. Okay. So we got that out of the way. Tush push may get banned. I'm thinking now there's a higher chance than before that there's going to be a ban on the tush push. I hope I'm wrong. But listen, the Eagles did get their Super Bowl out of it. They got 2 Super Bowl appearances out of it. If it does get banned, it'll be a sad day, but it'll be okay. And I say it's a sad day and it'll be okay as a perfect segue, although now that I've mentioned it's a segue, it's probably not that perfect anymore. If you're a fan of Good Morning Football, you'll know that there are certain people that you're used to seeing on that program, and it has changed over the years, and there was a whole big thing about them moving the studio and that might lead to the end of the show as people knew it. But one of the people who's the most, I think, closely affiliated with Good Morning Football is Peter Schrager. And again, before we came online today, Peter Schrager announced that he is leaving Good Morning Football. And I'm going to throw it out and let him explain his rationale for leaving. But I have to tell you, of all the people to leave that show, I mean, Kyle Brandt would be a big loss, but Schrags this is going to be tough to replace. Let's go out to Peter Schrager and the decision to leave Good Morning Football.
Yes, I'd love to get back to the football, but if you didn't follow Andrew Marchand or Ryan Glasspiegel on Friday, the rumors are true. Today is my last day on Good Morning Football. I end with great feelings. We're going to celebrate today. I love everyone on this show. It's all good, but this will be the last episode I will be on this program. And with a heavy heart, I'm stepping away, but it's also for good reasons and for a bright future. And hopefully we'll all still be crossing paths and we can talk about ball elsewhere. It'll be fine.
My reaction, Peter, is actually shock. Because when I heard that there was big news, I thought it was your mock draft was coming out.
Not yet.
No?
Not yet.
All right, so you leaving the show, that's a pretty big deal. I'm going to have to adjust to that, and we're going to talk about it a lot this morning.
So, Schrager's leaving Good Morning Football. I don't know how many people who watch this show watch that show. I don't watch it daily. I don't even know if I watch it weekly. I catch a lot of this stuff on social media from the show, so I think the show does have a lot of value. Saw a bunch of the stuff with like Seth Rollins cutting a promo against, I forget what Brandt called himself. It wasn't KB Punk. Maybe it was KB Punk. But he did a whole thing and they were doing a promo battle against each other last week and it was really funny. But it's always weird to see shows change and evolve over time. I talked about this last week with Snow the Goalie, the fact that like that show has kind of like changed and evolved over time. Some people like that. Some people don't like it as much. But shows over the course of years and years and years, they're going to change. Talent is going to leave. Now, I have no idea where Schrager's going to end up. I would not be surprised to see him pop up on The Ringer. I mean, I think that there's like a non-zero chance that would be where he goes. Would an ESPN bend over backwards to hire Schrager? I don't know. I mean, just given the amount of money that they're now paying Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee especially, I don't know if they'd want to open up the checkbook and hand him copious cash. Could he go to an NBC? Could he go be a key part of Amazon if Amazon Prime decides to like expand their coverage and they try to do more stuff that's like not just game day? I don't know. But like that wasn't the only major media announcement in the sports media landscape. There was another big one that happened over the course of, this news also broke, I believe, this morning. I saw, this broke this morning. This is the beauty of doing this show on a Monday morning. If you're a basketball fan, this is great news. Somebody who's been gone from ESPN for a while just popped up elsewhere. Zach Lowe is back.
Welcome to the brand new Zach Lowe Show. That's right, I'm back to have the same in-depth NBA conversations you're used to. We're going to talk about the games. Yeah, the games, the X's and O's, the drama, the trades, the playoffs are coming up. And now you get to see every episode in full on video on Spotify and on my own YouTube channel. Episodes drop every Monday and Thursday with a collection of guests you're going to love. So make sure you follow and subscribe to the brand new Zach Lowe Show.
So if you're a basketball fan, you know who Zach Lowe is. If you are a basketball fan who appreciates more than just people yelling about the game, Zach Lowe is arguably the best in the business. And now he finally ended up, I think everybody kind of expected him to end up with the Ringer, but now he's back on a new platform. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Schrager ends up on the Ringer. We'll see. When it happens, whenever he lands where he lands, we'll talk about it on this show. If you're not a basketball fan, you probably have no idea who Zach Lowe is. You might not even know who Peter Schrager is if you're not a huge football fan. So anyway, Sean C says, not going to lie, I expected Zach Lowe to be a 30-something. I guess if you've never seen Zach Lowe on TV before where he's doing like NBA Countdown and everything, you might have felt that way. Voice-wise, kind of agree. He's definitely not a 30. How old is Zach Lowe? Not that it matters, but how old is Zach Lowe? Let's see. Can we find? 47. He's 47 years old. Yeah, definitely not a 30-something. All right, I think last thing I wanted to get to today is what happened down in D.C. Now, I mentioned at the start of the show, the family, we went down to D.C. We enjoyed Game 2 of the series. We watched Jesus Luzardo put together 5 solid innings of baseball. From where we were sitting, right, you don't really get to experience or to appreciate the pitching from our vantage point, all right? You don't get to see the movement on the ball the same way that you get to see it on TV. So you're kind of at the mercy of just, is the guy finding success? Is he getting strikeouts? Is he getting easy pop flies? What is he getting simple groundouts? Like whatever. Luzardo looked fine. The Phillies offense popped off. Over the weekend, they had 2 games where they did a lot of damage to the Nationals. Now, mind you, they have struggled against lefties. They have not done particularly well early in games. In the first 2 games especially, they didn't do particularly well against starters. If you remember Thursday's game, the big thing that was talked about coming out of that game was the shadows and the batter's eye, and the fact that the batter's eye is white and the ball coming out is just really hard to see, especially at that time of day. So that was one thing, right? But then Game 3 happened, and I have to be honest with you. Game 3 is the one that frustrated me, and it doesn't negate a lot of the good. Like, Brandon Marsh had some good at-bats in the first game, Brandon Marsh went 0 for. Second and third game, he did well. Stott, I think, was the inverse, had an 0 for yesterday. Had two good games to start the series. They kind of mirrored each other in a weird way. But, I could take good samples of, Marsh and Stott's games and say, good, I feel pretty good about that early in the season. We'll see how things play out. I can take a look at Schwarber and his ability to lead off and see Schwarber's ability to put the ball in play. And even though he didn't get to lead off the first game of the series, now Trey Turner's out, so that's obviously a negative. Injury to Real Muto, also a negative. But man, Game 3 is the thing that just drove me nuts. And why? Because Aaron Nola took the mound. And listen, I can't stand here and whine about Aaron Nola for 20 more minutes. I don't have it in me. But what I can tell you is this. Aaron Nola, Every freaking year, it's the same thing. He has Cy Young ability stuff. You look at the movement on his pitches. You look at his ability to just string together like 3 or 4 really strong innings where it looks like he's going to be unhittable. And then he allows a base hit. And you go, all right, they finally caught up to him. Remember, like, he doesn't blow you away. He's not like a young Verlander, like hitting 100 with the fastball. So he doesn't have like that extra gear to kind of ratchet his pitches up to. So he gives up a base hit and you go, eh. Another guy gets on base, you go, eh. Nola gets undone in game 3 on 2 swings of the bat, 2 home runs, 1 in the 4th, 1 in the 6th. And those 2 home runs ended up costing the Phillies 5 runs. And here's what's so perplexing about Nola, right? He had no walks on the day, which you would say is very good. He had 8 strikeouts on the day, which you'd say is very good. You would say that over the course of 5 1/3 innings, 8 strikeouts, no walks, guy was probably in control. Then you look at the breakdown of pitches, go, all right, he threw 95 pitches in 5 1/3. That's not ideal. 61 of them were strikes. You say, all right, it's okay. Gives up 6 hits, but again, 2 of those hits are home runs. And if you were looking for like a silver lining about Aaron Nola, I have whatever the antithesis of a silver lining is, that's how I feel about Nola's game, because 2 home runs allowed is a bad sign, because if you remember to a season ago, Aaron Nola gave up 30 home runs. 30. That's like 10, but 3 times. That's like if you took half a dozen eggs and then you got 5 of those half dozens. That makes 30. Okay? That's like if you take Super Bowl appearances by the Eagles in my lifetime. Donovan, the loss to the Chiefs on the fake field in Arizona, and then the one that they just won. If you took 3 of those, like all 3 of those Super Bowls, and you watched them 10 times, that would get you to 30. That's how many home runs Aaron Nola gave up. It's a lot of home runs. Quite a few home runs. He's already given up 2 in 1 start. So I was hoping that if anything, right, even if I can't rely on Aaron Nola to have ace stuff anymore, or for him to like go out and kind of pitch like an ace, I was hoping that at least the long ball would maybe be a thing of the past. 2 home runs. 6 of the hits were 2 home runs. That's 33 1/3% of the hits that Aaron Nola allowed. They went into the outfield stands. That was the first one. Then, a little bit later on in the game, 6th inning. Under the outfield stands again. Aaron Nola has got to stop giving up the long ball. I don't know how he's going to do it. I don't know what he has to do to change it, but it's pretty bad. And I'm glad somebody in the comments understood where I was about to go, but I'm not going to go there yet. King Alfred's U.S. descendant says Russ is using Steiner math. Steiner math is one of my favorite promos of all time. I do not have it committed to memory, but it is absolutely ridiculous. You should go look up Steiner math. It was a backstage promo that he did when he was in TNA. It was about him being a genetic freak. It was I just pulled it up. He hits the normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50% chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best to beat me. Then you add Kurt Angle to the mix. Your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the 3-way at sacrifice, you got a 33rd and a third chance of winning, but I got a 66 and 2/3% chance of winning. And because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me and he's not even going to try. So Samoa Joe, you take your 33 and a third percent chance minus my 25% chance. You got an 8 and a third percent chance of winning at sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning. And if it was to add, if we go one-on-one and then add 66 and 2/3% chance, I got a 141 and 2/3% chance of winning at sacrifice. The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at sacrifice. That was the promo. I know it doesn't sound anything like Scott Steiner, but it's one of my favorite things in the world. It's incredible. Steiner math. Go look it up. It's incredible. Scott Steiner had muscles in places I don't even have places. But anyway, it's bad. Aaron Nola's bad. I don't care what anybody says. This is bad, okay? And I see what Sean C's saying. The offense deserves more blame. Yes, they put up one run, and you can't win a game when your starter gives up 5. And yes, the Phillies were able to put 7 runs across in the first 2 games. I get it. I get it. The Phillies were able to put up some crooked numbers, and that's great. And I love it. We love the Phillies. We love the Phillies, don't we, folks? But, like, Nola's got to be able to go out and, like, get something done. Like, Luzardo pitched a good enough game. Wheeler was dominant. Okay? Nola gets to slot in and be, like, the number 3. He doesn't even have the pressure of being the ace of the staff anymore. He doesn't have that. There's no expectation for him to be the guy that carries the rotation anymore. And it hasn't been that way since Zach Wheeler got here.
Oh, but the Phillies scored 7 runs in the first game. They scored 11 in the second game. You know, you just have to save a few of those for the third game, and Aaron Nola would have gotten a win.
Doesn't matter. Stop giving up the long ball, okay? It's an actual problem. And the thing is, I don't have a good way to refute another line of thinking. I was watching Phightin Words this morning with Bob and Ant. You can find that on the Joy Media Network and wherever you get your podcasts. But, like, I'm listening to this back and forth. And, you know, Bob Wankel has this thought that when you go from start to start, it's flummoxing and it's honestly, like, kind of maddening to see the way that Aaron Nola can dominate for innings at a time, and then one thing goes wrong, then there's a long ball, and all of a sudden the game has gone upside down on you. And then you get Anthony, on the other hand, who, like, he calls himself the back of the baseball card kind of guy. And by the end of the season, you will see a lot of statistical measures that will point to Aaron Nola being a top 20 pitcher in the National League. But the eye test and watching every one of these starts, you feel the same foreboding feeling every time he takes the mound. The only time I feel relieved watching Aaron Nola pitch is when he leaves the mound as part of a pitching change. It's the only time I feel better. I spend most of the game just worried about, oh, there goes the base hit. We know a home run's coming. Oh, they're starting to make contact. It's only a matter of time before a 3-run homer. We all know it. And that's what's so maddening about it. Nola has legit stuff. Like, I wish there were a way to just take Aaron Nola and, like, save all the good innings for a few games, have all the bad innings, you need a few games where he can just go out and win you a game. And when you've picked up the first 2 on the road against Washington, and all of those games had been essentially home games, home away from home games, he's got to go out and at least keep you in the game and keep it competitive. And I know somebody's going to say, well, the Phillies gave up 6 runs in the game on Saturday, so he only gave up 5. They should have been able to score at least 6. They scored 18 runs over the first 2 games, and all that's fair. But man, is it just too much to expect this guy who was your opening day starter for a long time, who was viewed as the ace of the staff, who you just gave a lot of money to last year, is it really expecting much for him to, like, not give up 2 multi-homer game, like, to give up 2 multi-run home runs? Is it that much? Like, am I asking too much? Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think I am. You know, Sean C says, let's just say when Nola faces the Dodgers, he can't be mad if he gives up bombs. Well, that'll be a little bit different. Dodgers are a totally different thing, but it's frustrating. I think the whole thing is frustrating. I think Nola is very frustrating. Now, we didn't get to the torpedo bats. The torpedo bats are something that have been in baseball. I don't think it was just this year, and the Yankees aren't the only team using them. But the torpedo bats might actually break baseball, because at this point, people are very, 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 very upset about the fact that the Yankees have hit as many home runs as they have through the weekend. And it became apparent that, like, oh, I got it. The issue at hand right now with the Yankees hitting all these home runs is their torpedo bats. And it's because apparently they figured out a way to add more bat to where they call it more bat to the label area. So there's more solid wood hitting the ball, like at the hardest part of the bat. And so there have been people kind of running counter narratives to what's going out there. I saw John Boy put out a stat. It was 9 of the 15 home runs were hit by players using the torpedo bat. And then there was an analyst who helped design them, who worked with the Yankees from 2018 to 2024. That guy's now with the Marlins. Stanton used one last year. Bellinger said that he tried one last year with the Cubs. The Twins catcher, Ryan Jeffers, also used one. It's kind of a mess. Joe Pompliano put something out that people seem to think all of the Yankees are using the Torpedo-style bat, but they're not. And that apparently, despite the fact that they look wonky, like I'm going to bring one up here really quick, because if you look at the bat itself, it does look weird. Okay, like if you look at the bat itself, you expect that. We all know what a baseball bat's supposed to look like. So if you look at this, let's go to this image here. It looks like it flares out, right? So if you look just past the number, let me see if I click over here, like right in here, where this kind of bows, it looks like it bows out and then back in, where you would expect the contour to then remain flat across the top. You've got this almost wonky looking, almost looks like a Funko bat. Remember the old Funko bats, like the yellow ones that you used to play wiffle ball with? So you could see how that contour goes, and like maybe it's a camera, but I don't think it is. But the pushback here, and Joe Pompliano said, it still falls within the MLB rules. They can be no wider than 2.61 inches in diameter at their thickest part, cannot exceed 42 inches in length. So they're technically a compliant bat. But like, I'm sorry, that doesn't look right. That to me doesn't look like a normal baseball bat. That looks like somebody's trying to figure out a way to manipulate the rules. Now, as we know, Russ Joy, big rule guy here, all right? When we talk about the tush push and player safety, just give me some numbers. To this point, do I think the Torpedo bats have made a difference? I would argue, yeah, they've probably made some sort of a difference. Here was a side-by-side of regular bats versus Torpedo bats. This came out yesterday. Let's throw this up on the screen, because I told you, like, you expect the contour to be a certain sort of way. This is pretty staggering. Again, here's your black standard baseball bat, right? Normal, straight contour. Of course, it widens out as you get towards the end of the bat. But you look at this thing right in here. This is weird. There is something strange. It goes up, it comes back down a little bit towards the tip of the bat. It just looks wrong. Now, there might be some baseball expert who can explain to me why this is okay. That's so within the rules. Something looks weird about these bats. Now, if I were a baseball team right now, would I be actively trying to get my hitters to use these bats? You're damn right I would. Would I get a Torpedo bat in the hands of Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber? Yes, I would. I'd manipulate and I'd use these bats until they get banned. Because make no mistake, even though it's happening with the Yankees, I would assume that there's going to be a conversation around them. And by the end of this season, good enough chance that these bats are outlawed. But we will see. Anyway, I think that's where we're going to end it for today. I want to thank everybody who joined me here live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Thank you to all of you who listen after the fact in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back on Wednesday here with the Russ Joy Show. We have Snow the Goalie Press Row Show tonight as the Flyers look to do whatever they're going to do at home. We are down to, I think, the final 3 home games for the Flyers this season? Season's almost done. Sixers, jeez, that season can't end fast enough. We're going to have 2 teams in the draft lottery, hopefully with high picks. That's a positive we could take away from it. But anyway, Snow the Goalie will be tonight. I'll be back here Wednesday morning with the Russ Joy Show. If you haven't done so already, go find Phightin Words. It's over on the Joy Media account, and they also have their own YouTube channel, Phightin Words, PH, no G on the end, to get all of your Phillies breakdown with Anthony Sanfilippo and Bob Wankel. I'm going to try to get an episode of It's Just Wrestling out tonight, or not tonight, this week. We got a lot of stuff going on. Joy Media, a lot of podcasts going on around here, so hopefully you're enjoying them, having fun. Anyway, I'll be back Wednesday. Until then, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and that's also the name of the show. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to each and every one of you Wednesday morning here on the Russ Joy Show. Talk to all of you soon.